Retropie! Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong. Welcome to the back office. Have you ever had that experience where you've eaten just way too much food? I have that right now. So excuse my lethargy as I try to ensure that the stir fry I just ate stays down. But you might recall in a previous video this. It's a 7-inch HDMI LCD USB capacitive touchscreen. You can see it here. 1024 by 600 pixels, so it's a little bit not quite as tall a resolution as you're used to, but that's fine. It's got an on and off switch here, so you can operate the backlight independently, which is kind of cute. And it's just basically a self-contained module, totally self-contained, so you can install it into a panel somewhere, and away you go. It does come with these instructions, and these are necessary if you're using them with a Raspberry Pi, actually. Because there are actually specific settings in the Raspberry Pi you need to make this actually work. If you don't put these settings here into the screen, it just goes no, and you just get weird corrupt stuff going on. It just can't sync. So I got that to build a project, and the project was going to put a Raspberry Pi and all of its friends in a box like this so that I could open it and have the screen right there. And just play the games. Pew pew. And I was going to use the Sega, the Nintendo SNES control pads, and they would be like here in USB, and I could just get out and play it. And it's going to use this battery, which is a 10,000 milliamp hour 5-volt cell. So that's going to live in there somewhere, and the Raspberry Pi will live there, and a piece of plastic and cover and a nice bezel with a nice screen. That's the plan ultimately. But I've since changed tact now, and that's the subject of this video today. And the reason I've changed my tact is that I've actually stumbled. I was just literally clearing the back office out. I say that, it was pretty half-assed actually. I just sort of went through a few things. You might have even just heard that I've just dropped some stuff off the counter. It's that packed in here. What did I drop? My Pringles microphone. And I found this, and this is a single unit. It's basically a monitor, but it's just a composite monitor. It's well, I guess it's also got component if you look at the pinouts on the back. But yeah, it's a panel, not touchscreen. It's just a regular panel, and there's its sort of adapter, controller-y, driver-y type board. So it's going basically from an adapter into another adapter, and this is what you'd find as a kind of a tuner board, if you want to describe it for lack of a better word. Inside your telly, you all have these panels, and these panels sort of conform to some sort of LDVS type interface, and then your TV will, a fly, get away. We'll have something like this. That's the first fly I've seen of the season, by the way. I shall have to get out my fly zapper. And I basically hooked it up to this Raspberry Pi, and it's got really weird pinouts, so you can see here you've got this black red wire. That's the colour order, black red. But actually the two first wires are 12 volts, and the second two are the ground. It's a really odd scheme. So just to show you this all hooked up. Now the panel is 12 volts, unfortunately, which doesn't really fit into my master plan of using this as a single source for powering this whole enterprise. I'm just going to plug in my gamepad too, so you get the full effect of this. And if you're building along at home, I've got a Retropie build on here, and that's essentially it. In the sort of Raspberry Pi 3 Retropie build, just all stock really. A few test ROMs on there, and that's all it is. I'm just going to turn on the bench power supply. That is currently set to 11.8 volts, close enough, and the panel will burst into life. So the quality between these two panels isn't really that discernible. You'd think that this being a composite one would be really noticeable. And I'll show you a trick here, by the way. But it's not. They look really similar. And I think that's also because the picture's shrunk down, and it's actually a pretty good source. And here's a fix for you, by the way. Have a look. Have a look at the quality. Can you see there's bleeding here going on? Yeah? As I move this around, you can see that Super Nintendo doesn't look so sweet. And the reason is because I haven't actually hooked up a proper common ground yet. So if you have a look now and then have a look now, why? Yeah, it just bursts into life. And at that mode like that, full on quality. It's almost saturated now. I have to turn down the brightness. It's so good, a clean signal. So let's ignore that. Ignore the quality issue aside in terms of the picture, the ghosting, because we know that's going to be sorted. So that's the panel running off 12 volts. Great. And I'm not going to show you the games because you're not allowed to download ROMs unless you own the games. You've got this, which is the sort of menu, brightness, color, the usual nonsense, and on-off, actually a soft on-off, which might be nice if you're using your Raspberry Pi setup in the box as a music player. And then you can turn off the screen and save a few bit of current. So looking at the screen, it's saying it's drawing 23 milliamps like this in a sort of quiescent state. And when I turn it on, it's jumping up to 323 milliamps. So it's not a lot actually compared to the sort of what the Raspberry Pi uses. I think it's a pretty good panel. Now, if I do a naughty, I'm going to do a naughty, and that's I'm going to take the panel off the power, and I'm going to hook it. If I get this the right way around, don't want to screw this up. Don't screw this up. I want to hook the power up straight to the bottom of this Raspberry Pi. So, by the way, you can see how I've tapped in here. Maybe I'll just move this across so you can have a little quick look. I've actually tapped in the composite signal there from the Raspberry Pi. That's your jack. That's your jack connector there. You can see that one is your composite plus, and then the black is the composite ground. Just so you know, the more you know, eh? The more you know. I'm just going to bring that back in now, and I'm just going to hook this up. Get these the right way, Andrew. Get these right. You can see this is the Raspberry Pi that blew something in the course from the power to the USB, which was totally dead. So I've got this rather thick wire bridging it, bringing power to that side of the PCB. That's fortunate though, because we're just going to touch off there and touch off there, and we should get our board come to life. There we go. So you can see it does work. It does live. In fact, it's not even that bad a picture. It's just not as bright. And that's because I suspect the control circuitry and regulation circuitry, and look what I've got the bloody PCB of that just shorting out over everything. Let's get rid of that. The regulation circuitry, I think, is happy enough. It's getting enough that it can work with, so it's probably using a 3v3 anyway, so it's just chopping it down to 3v3. The fact that it's going from 12 isn't an issue, it's just going from 5 to 3v3. But the LED driver that's doing the backlighting effectively isn't going to be calibrated, and that's why the screen is dimmer, because it's just regulating down a little bit from its sort of constant current setup. However, it's doing it through, you can't quite see it, but this bank over here where my finger is wiggling. So what I'm going to do, I do have a sort of semi-solution for that, and that is basically to get a boost converter. So I'm going to boost up from the 5 volts to 12 volts and see if that's going to do the trick for me in any sort of reasonable way that doesn't use loads and loads of current up, because that's the last thing you want, isn't it? Just to sort of have a way that's just being too wasteful. And hopefully that'll just get the LEDs bright enough for me. Something interesting though, while it's running, I don't know why I didn't think of this. While it's running, let's just measure what it's actually sending out to the panel's illumination. -9 volts. So it's sending. Why is it -9 volts? There's a weird colour scheme, isn't it? Could have sworn that it should be this way around. 9.3 volts. So the circuitry is driving to try to derive a 9.39 volts source. If I turn my bench power supply down to 5 volts ish, let's do 4.98. Let's see what's going on here then. Look, we're only losing a little bit of voltage, so it's doing a bloody good job. It's got clearly has onboard boost circuitry firing away there. If we bring that up to 12, yeah, and then we bring it back down again, see where it drops. Ooh. Oh yeah, I dropped it. I dropped it to like 3 volts then. No wonder it was off. So we need to arrive at that. You're not really losing much then, are you? It's only losing a volt, but that volt is providing you a significant drop here. And I think it's also providing a drop in current, because even if you adjust the brightness, you just can't get it back up anymore. I think you're relying on the backlight being a certain level. I don't think the brightness, by the way, controls the backlight. It just controls the twist on the LCD. So if that backlight's not bright enough, you're never going to get it brighter still. So let's see. That's going to be relatively easy to put in the box though, compared to the other screen, because you can see here it's only just connected by a few of these thin, flimsy wires. So effectively I've more or less just demonstrated the entire Retropie build to you. So if you are a Retropie enthusiast, I'll just give you one last quick rundown here, shall I? So you've got your power supply, which could be a wall wart or a battery, going to your Raspberry Pi. Your Raspberry Pi is connected to a panel either via HDMI or by the composite output. I've soldered directly to this, but you can get a connector for that. If you want sound and your HDMI thing doesn't have sound, you can get sound from this port. I don't have a speaker here to show you, but that's pretty noddy and obvious. You can buy those on eBay. You'll need a control pad. You can either use a wireless one or wired, wireless like the 8-bit do, or a wired like this. The 8-bit do is a sort of Bluetoothy one, bit fussy with Retropie. I would just start with a wired, frankly. And if you need one, get a keyboard as well. There's always a bit of fannying around where you're going to need a USB keyboard to sort something out. And that's it. Nothing really special about the panel. Whatever panel you can get or monitor. Just be aware, some panels don't like the resolutions and things that the Raspberry Pi outputs by default, but there's a file on the card called config.txt you can put in a PC or Mac and just edit that, and you can edit the default settings that the Raspberry Pi outputs so it does work on your monitor. So I hope that's of some use to you guys at home. Please stay tuned in future builds where we finally get this all into this emergency survival prepper gaming pack with suitable batteries, and maybe if we're ever so lucky, somebody or even I might design some laser cut things and we can actually finish it off so it looks nice. If not, I'll just be finishing it with cardboard. Please like, subscribe, share if you're that way inclined. Chat to me over on Patreon, and as ever, thanks for watching. Finger guns.